Howdy, everybody. Thanks for being here. Thanks for joining me as always. Uh, Kind of an interesting one here today. As the thumbnail states, an expedition beyond the ice wall. Uh, it's kind of a folder I haven't really gone into in a long time, but I shared the clipping, some time back, and it was fairly popular. So I knew that there was, you know, what were they finding at the quote poles in the 1800s? A lot of interesting stuff. If I find time to do more of these in the future, I'm sure I will. When, I don't know, but we'll get into some more of the summer-like islands of the North Pole and what they were finding on the South Pole. Um, they expect to find, this is a quote, they expect to find a warm, open, blooming country. In fact, they called the land beyond the ice wall the land of palms, or the palm country. Always thought that was quite interesting. But yeah, as always, cheers. Last day of the month. Let's let's go out with the let's go out with a bang. Let's pull this baby up. It's not too long a one, so this should be a shorter video. Um, yeah. So 1897, on wheels to the South Pole. An American expedition will cross the Antarctic Sea in a sailboat on wheels. Expect to find a warm, open, blooming country. Belgium and Norway rapidly fitting out boats to race with Uncle Sam to the spot. Nansen, Perry, and Andre eclipsed by Halprin and Cope. Now, naturally, as we get into a little bit more of the radium series, and as we talk a little bit, as we approach World War I, and maybe talk a little bit about World War II and tech and submarines, especially, maybe we'll cross paths again with, um, you know, the Antarctic stations and uh, the Nazi Party's interest in Antarctica and the kind of New Schwabenland ideas. There's some really interesting ones I have on that, but I've been saving just because I know eventually I'll be talking about radium submarines and the Nazi Party, 1930s, 40s. But yeah, let's jump into this. Julian Hawthorne and other amateur explorers who have been thinking about the South Pole for years have met their Fitzsimmons this spring in the persons of Professor Helprin and Cope of the American Society of Naturalists, who are actually going to look for it. Their boat is waiting for them, and they are waiting for the start. The South Pole as a means of traffic between the continents, as an unexplored region, and as a place of interest calls on up to date explorers to come south and try to reach it. So marvelous have been the accounts concerning it from those who have got nearest it that it may ultimately become the point toward which those irresistible explorers, Perry, Nansen, and Andre, will try instead of the impossible North Pole. Yeah, and we'll kind of again, later down that line, we'll explore, you know, what was keeping people interested in the North Pole and what led them south. A lot of the explorers, if they didn't die in the north, they found their way down to the south. Messer, Hellren, and Cope do not know what they will find. There is a wall of ice around the South Pole. Of that they are certain. But whether they will find ice within the wall, or as is generally supposed, an open polar sea, is something of which they will tell you better after they have got back. And my apologies, I always do a better job of showing you these images before we jump into the article. So we'll pause for a second to show you this image. Gentlemen on the boat, their plan, again, as I stated, was to cross the Antarctic Sea on a sailboat on wheels. Here you have the people on the boat and the gentleman boat with the wheels and the sailboat on runners, by which the expedition will cross the frozen beach to the ice wall to find the Palm Country. Now, before we finish off this article, we'll share a little bit of the fossil and um, plant life found in Antarctica that really strengthens this whole concept. Although, these people had access to old maps and they were well aware that the inland area of Antarctica had been well explored and documented. Mountain names, animals, people, so on and so forth. So, but yes, back to the article. If successful in finding the South Polar spot, these gentlemen will have done three remarkable things. The first and most useful will be the establishment of a shortcut from one continent to another. Second, they will have settled certain geographical points. And third, they will have gratified the curiosity of those who wonder what the South Pole climate is like. Possibly they will establish the South Pole as a winter resort, a rival to the beaches and capes of the North American coast. But that is a long way ahead. The number of persons who have tried to reach the South Pole is limited. This, the celebrated Belgian professor Egensberg accounted for in a strange, though rational way. He said the mention of the South Pole recalled the heat of the tropics, and projectors could not become interested in it. They thought of it as a sweltering hot place peopled by dark-skinned nations, and they reasoned that, if discovered, little good could come from it. Now, don't you think that's interesting? I think that's interesting. That they avoided even exploring the region because they thought it was a area populated by dark-skinned people and had the heat of the tropics. This is what they thought in the 1800s. And we're not talking about just one country, several countries, because as we stated earlier, they all start something. They uncover something. The expedition to which they find, I'm not sure, but something with enough evidence to fund or to ignite a fire under several nations, all in a race to explore this region. And as they stated, the reason that no one had been there or tried was because it was considered to be a sweltering hot place peopled by dark skinned nations. And they reasoned that if discovered, little good could come from it. Though this idea has been exploded, says Inglesberg, it has been impossible to arouse the interest in South Pole that the North Pole at once awakens. But this spring, explorers have been backed in their enterprises to a magnificent extent. And not only are Americans going, but a Belgian expedition under the auspices of the Belgian government and commanded by Captain Gerlach will set out also. And trying to outdo each other of these will be a Norwegian expedition under Bokragravik, one of the most noted Southern explorers. Whether they will share the fate of Captain Wilkins of the United States Navy in 1840, who dared not step foot upon the new continent he discovered, or of explorer Ross in 1840, who suffered hardships such as no other explorer ever described, or of Brovinsk, previous to either of these, who escaped with his life but without his ship, getting back to Graham Island in precarious ways, can only be conjectured. Within a short time, two have gone to the South Pole, Larsen in 1893 and Borgravik in 1896, and so successful. So I would imagine that expedition in 1896, since it was a year before this was written, they revealed something quite interesting. And so successful were they that Brokovich is about to start again, sure that he will reach the pole and know all about it. The best that can be said for any of these explorers is that they have brought back fascinating tidings, much more interesting than any news that has reached us from the North Pole. Those who have essayed to find the Northwest Passage have reported only a sea of ice and glaciers, adverse currents. There is an awful monotony of ice and snow. Russian dogs and the darkest skies about the accounts of the North Pole trips, but with the South Pole it is different. Every explorer who has gone south has reported the same thing. After reaching about 60 degrees south latitude, it gets very cold. The temperature corresponds to the southern coast of Greenland, and the Antarctic Ocean begins to fill with ice. The sailing is rendered all the more perilous from the fact that though there are numerous islands, there are no small way stations as exists in the Arctic seas for the benefit of explorers, and no repairs can be made after leaving the well-established settlements south of Australia. This makes it bad for the mariner, for he cannot order his dog sent ahead of him, nor leave his extra provisions to be sent for, should he decide to venture another year into the interior, nor can he render his crew for an additional month of voyage. After sailing through the sea of ice, the explorer strikes land. There is a great flat beach of ice covered country over which the glacier breaks. It is of varying depth, and to the south of it rises a wall of ice. This wall is the stumbling block to all explorers. None have ever scaled it. The existence of this great ice barrier is attributed by Borgolovic and others who have gone there to the action of the water. The ice waves dash over the beach and beat against the air ready formed wall of ice and keep it ever firm and solid, a barrier that which is within. It is to scale this wall that the new explorations are to take place. Captain Ross in 1840 climbed the mast of his ship and discovered two smoking volcanoes on the other side of this ice wall. He called them Terror and Erebus after his ships. He thought he could detect the sight of warm air rising, the difference in the atmosphere being visible. All Antarctic explorers say that there may be a warm polar circle within this wall of ice. They bring back pieces of petrified bark and they find curious bones of animals. Their reasoning is that a quiet, peaceful people dwell within this circle and enjoy a superbulous atmosphere hemmed in by the wall of ice. The supposition is no more crazy than the knowledge that we dwell comfortable here within a wall of ice at either pole of our world. They are surrounded by the same wall of ice. Isn't that funny that they're both describing two circular walls, the one that encapsulates us and one that encapsulates this tropical race of dark skinned people? If a passage were discovered, it would unite the polar world with ours. The South Pole is supposed to be depressed, and Captain Sims, who devoted much time and attention to its existence, had the honor of having it named Sims Hole after him. Now, when they were doing like altitude measurements of this region, they found that the highest points in Antarctica were taller than Everest, and kind of strengthening again, as they're mentioning here, the two bowls idea. A strange ship is being built for the voyage. It is fitted out with small boats of all descriptions. One is a sailing vessel on wheels, which will glide over the frozen beach, carrying the explorers to the wall of ice beyond. This ship is an ironclad to meet the glaciers, but the boat, on runners, is for that awful slippery surface upon which no explorer has dared to set foot. The current of frozen water washing over it would take any man off his feet. But with the boat on runners and sails, the ironclads and the stout will of the explorers of '97 will get there and find the wonderful land of palms that will be a mecca for those who want to get away from their present sphere of a vacation in another. I don't know what that says, but yeah, powerful, right? The land of palms, the tropical climate, a sphere within a sphere where a dark skinned race lives. Very interesting. Very interesting. I think it kind of coalesces quite nicely with some of the older examples, especially of maps, and perhaps again this why I kind of chose to do this one after my previous article, um, the seeking to show we live inside of a sphere is because of this kind of overlapping idea of the what the poles are and explorations. the circular explanation of things. And yeah, whether you agree or disagree is sort of irrelevant. It's just again, an enjoyable article that's 100, almost 130 years old, 120 years old. It's quite interesting. But yeah, I'm going to pull up a an older article about some petrifactions and coal related items that kind of strengthen this idea. So yeah, I just wanted to show this. This is apart from a larger article that I'll be getting into as I continue my kind of geological mineral explanations when it comes to coal and deposits of earth and how that kind of relates to our past and cataclysmic events and so forth. But we'll get into some Admiral Byrd stuff further down the line. It'll correlate with the World War I, World War II stuff. But I wanted to share this. So this is Mount Howe described. Mount Weaver, rising to an altitude of 10,000 feet, barely 220 miles from the pole, was discovered during the Byrd Antarctic expedition of 1933. Its discoverers made several significant finds, including several coal seams, various fossils, and petrified tree trunks up to 18 inches in diameter. Remains of trees that grew in the time of the dinosaurs, of dragons, right? This goes back again to, I believe, those maps, are kind of hinting at that vapor canopy concept, right? That the poles were accessible, or the outer ring in this vapor canopy megafauna age, right? Of these giant everything, mammals, lizards. Mount Howe has only been observed from a great distance. It is actually a group of low connecting ridges and gable shaped nunataks rising to an elevation of about 10,000 feet. A nunatak is a mountain or hilltop protruding above the surface of the protruding ice mass. Mount Howe is in the southernmost occurrence of exposed rock in the world. Leader of the party is Dr. George A. Dumani, veteran of the three previous Antarctic expeditions. But yeah, so kind of a quick one, but nonetheless, I just when I was finishing my video up from yesterday, uh, this one came across. I found this in one of my folders and just thought it was just it'd be a good way to kind of end the month, I think. And but yeah, so uh, you know, school's back on and things are crazy, and doing a 2+ hour live has just been incredibly difficult. Those that have been asking about Anomalous America, I really am doing my best. It does look like I'm going to be transitioning to recording that when I, you know, and piecing it together and doing a premiere, which isn't exactly what I wanted to do, but it is what it is. So Indiana's complete, and I'm just ready to present at this point. So thanks for being patient with me there. And yeah, so these little 30-minute videos, 20-minute videos, whenever I can sneak into my office, during nap time, that's what I get. So, and it's been working. I've been able to get a video out, 4 or 5 a week. So I'm pretty happy with that. But I haven't forgot about, my favorite series. So stay tuned. That'll be out in just a few days. But yeah, thank you all, and enjoy the rest of your month. And I'll see you next month. Have a wonderful day, guys.